One definition of an introvert is a person who thinks through his thoughts before speaking. The opposite is an extrovert. Extroverts use speaking to formulate their ideas. I am an introvert. We had a 4-star extrovert on our care team. He was enthusiastic and bright, but at times disruptive. Especially annoying, he would jump in uninvited to help out others with their presentations. The team would collectively tense until he finished, and subtle hints would not deter him. It turns out that unlike introverts who bridle at interruptions, and by the way, that's why I tried subtlety first, extroverts respond more positively to directly confronting their behavior. After learning this, on the next set of rounds, when our extrovert began to expound, I firmly and politely asked him to stop. He did so without a bit of annoyance. The team relaxed and rounds improved for all. It was like rain off a duck's back.
One of the most influential physician leaders who helped shape my decision to become a pediatric infectious disease specialist was Dr. Martin Kleiman. He's well known among my academic circles and was one of my mentors as a pediatric resident, although he's not necessarily a household name. Perhaps though, you've heard of one of his former patients, a boy from small town Indiana who in the late 80s and early 90s single-handedly changed the face of AIDS in the US, Ryan White. Dr. Kleiman was Ryan's personal physician and helped support him on his journey from stigma in his hometown to celebrity status under the national spotlight. Ryan put the face of an everyday teen on the HIV epidemic and forever changed the hearts and minds of so many who'd been discriminatory. The counsel and care of Dr. Kleiman helped Ryan to know his disease and know how to speak to others so they could understand it too. Ultimately, federal legislation passed in Ryan White's name continues to provide comprehensive care for patients with HIV more than 25 years later, including some of my patients. Although he doesn't seek the spotlight for this work, Dr. Kleiman does exemplify for me the leadership attribute that when you stand up for one person, you stand up for countless others. And Ryan's legacy demonstrates that one person can indeed change the world.
When I was 3, I was taken to the hospital. I was in a lot of pain, and my parents and the doctors didn't know what was wrong, and I ended up spending a couple months in the hospital. When I was 5, I was told that I would not live very long, wouldn't live past 20, and I would be stuck to a wheelchair for all of my life, and I'm not in a wheelchair now. And when I was 6, I was told that I probably had a week to live. And, you know, hearing this is traumatic as a kid, and even more so for my parents and others who loved me around me. But that sense of gratitude for the people who stuck with me, and that every day is a gift, and that the least I could do is be the best and do the most that I can to make a difference as a way of thanking them for all the people who did help me out at such a young age.
So one of my favorite quotes is by Charles Schwab. "I consider my ability to rouse enthusiasm among men the greatest asset I possess. The way to develop the best that is in a man is by appreciation and encouragement." I think this shows you that you need to value everybody around you, and they too will come up and you can accomplish your great missions.
So I want to talk about the mentor that shaped my leadership style. And this is an individual I knew long before I was in medicine. Actually, it was my boss when I was in college. He taught me a lot about leadership, and a lot of it was tacit. It wasn't like most leadership lessons are. They weren't formal. It was stuff you just learned from observing it. I worked for this gentleman at a Nebraska Game and Parks Commission facility, and he was the director of that facility. And from him, I learned 2 main lessons. First off, know your people. If you know your people, you can delegate effectively and get things done. He knew us very well, the people that worked for him, so he knew our strengths, he knew our weaknesses, what we liked to do, what we didn't like to do, what we were good at. So consequently, what he could do was if there was a task to be done, he could say, "You two, go do it. This is what it needs to be. This is what it needs to look like. Here are your resources. I'll be by at the end of the day to check on you." And that was it. And he could trust us, and we got stuff done, all because he knew us. The second thing I think that I learned from him that was incredibly valuable was he believed in the core values of the institution, of the organization. We were often handed things from headquarters in Lincoln. Here's a task or something we had to do. And I know for a fact that he didn't agree with them, and maybe behind closed doors he'd have these conversations with it. But by the time it came down to us in the field doing the job, there was none of that. It was, here's the job, guys, let's get it done. And I found, even personally, in the times in which if you enter into a group of individuals and you have that mindset about, oh, here's something we've got to do, oh gosh, it's so stupid, right off the bat, you're taking 5 steps backwards. And I think that that's probably another one of the great lessons I learned from him.
So one of the most valuable lessons I learned was really the importance of national mentorship early in my career. And I got that advice from my senior training directors, one of whom had been in the field about 30+ years, and was known to be nationally one of the most connected people in psychiatry. So he told me early on, you should really think about applying for this educational fellowship, or you should really try to get on this committee. And so I did, and he was exactly right. And once I got on the committee, he also told me that one of the things that most people don't realize is about 10 people in any field run most of the areas, such as psychiatry or nursing or so on. They're on all the national committees. And so you have to be one of those folks that does all the work. And when the chair asks you to do something, you actually get it done immediately. And as more work is completed, more will be given to you, which I found to be true. And eventually I rose up in the committee from the resident member to being co-chair of the National Training Education Committee for Child Psychiatry. And I think the same is true in almost every other area.
A leader is not somebody who treats his superiors well. It's somebody you treat people that are right and left of you very well. And this is exactly what we are blessed with to have in our institute. I had the privilege of meeting Chancellor Gold last month, and what struck me was his calm composure, the busiest man there is, but not once did he look at his watch to look, is it time now for the meeting to be over? And we exceeded the meeting time. His assuredness, his calmness, he just exuded a lot of positivity, and I feel really blessed. This is something I will carry with me as I am entering into my leadership role for the rest of my life.
Very early on in life, I saw good leadership skills modeled by my parents. My parents were very active in church leadership and still are to this day. So one of my earliest memories of leadership as a child is seeing my parents up front and seeing everyone staring at them and everyone's eyes upon them, and realizing that was kind of scary, and it took a lot of courage for them to get up front and do this. So I realized that then at that time that leadership involved a great deal of courage.